Hi, everybody. Can you hear me okay? Okay, great. Welcome. Thank you for being here. I'm Ruby T, and I'm the curator of museum education at PAM. And welcome to the Fredi, Schiff, Levin lecture series, which is graciously sponsored by the Levin family. Now in its 22nd season, the lecture series honors Fredi Schiff Levin's legacy as a member of the Provincetown arts community by inviting artists, curators, authors, and scholars to speak at PAM. We are grateful to the Levin family for their continued support of this annual program. Thank you for joining us tonight. We're so thrilled to welcome Julia Salinger and Susie Nielsen. And I'm just going to read some short bios about our presenters. Julia Salinger is a poet, artist, painter, printmaker, actress, and playwright. Julia Salinger's varied career began as an art historian. Her mentor, Irving Sandler, was the preeminent art scholar who wrote The Triumph of American Painting. She continued her studies at Columbia University and worked for Ronald Feldman Fine Arts as a researcher for 5 Andy Warhol print portfolios. During this period, she was accepted into the prestigious curatorial program at the Hirshhorn Museum in Washington, D.C. She has also worked at the Cooper Hewitt Museum of Design, the Guggenheim, the Neuberger Museum, and the Whitney. Her journey took her into the musical side of the arts, where she managed performers for over 17 years. She worked with such diverse talents as Laurie Anderson, Bobby McFerrin, Diane Reeves, and Diana Krall. After a few life-changing experiences, she decided it was time to nourish her creative spirit. In 1999, she started to create her own work. Since 2000, she has shown in numerous group shows and is represented in collections in the US, Europe, and Asia. She began acting in 2018 and has since done 11 plays, mainly at the Provincetown Theater. In 2022, she had a part in the film High Tide, which will be shown at the Provincetown Film Festival this Friday and Sunday. Her first play, Fatty Pastrami, was read last March at the Truro Library. Susie Nielsen is an artist designer. She runs Farm Projects, a project space gallery in Wellfleet, Mass. Susie works with artists to create exhibitions and printed works dedicated to building a community that extends outside the walls of a single space. At the core of her curatorial practice is the belief that most artists are working through a single universal question, and throughout their career, they push deeper into its answers and complexities. An exhibition project then captures a distinct landmark within that inquiry, culminating upon previous discoveries and laying the foundation for further exploration. Susie sees her role as one of collaborative editor. Her curatorial style focuses on removing as much as possible to leave room for relationships in the work to be interpreted by the viewer. By creating this open, interpretive space, Susie's goal is to create projects that foster self-reflection, empathy, and humanity, inviting viewers to see themselves in relation to others as a means of breaking down the fears that prevent unity. She has a wide range of experience in art and design, beginning with photography and film. She has been making and exhibiting her own work along the way. Susie works with text and materiality, removing language from its original context to create new opportunities for unlearning, changing neural patterns that may have become hardwired over time. She has an MFA from Rhode Island School of Design and undergraduate degree from Northeastern. Originally from New York, she lives in Wellfleet. Please join me in welcoming Julia Salinger and Susie Nielsen. Thank you.
Thank you. This has been an amazing and really fun trip. I want to thank Pam, Director Chris McCarthy, and the entire staff who have been so kind, helpful, and generous. I want to thank Ruby for working on my presentation with me, and I would like to thank Megan Hinton, who first championed me to the exhibitions committee. I'm just going to read a little bit before we start with the slides. I live my art, whether it's painting, poetry, playwriting, constructions, travel, etc. Everything is everything for me. In one day, I see possibilities in it all that informs my work, and there are no boundaries for me. My days are cinematic. Each frame of information enters my creating and enters a storehouse of ideas. I always took the scenic route as a kid, and my sister was like, why don't you take the thruway or the I-95? It's so much faster. And I said, no, I don't want to take that. I want to take the scenic route. And then she'd ask me again and again, and I'd say, why are you asking me? You know the answer. So tonight we're going to take the scenic route together to give you a sense of how my mind processes visuals and ideas. Ready, don't. Uh-oh. You give me, okay. What? Oh, was that the problem? Okay, thank you. Because I'm not really good with these remotes. I love to travel, and travel is a big part of my taking in information and also like experiencing other places and giving me new ideas and just like being able to be away somewhere and walk and think and meditate and, you know, write in my head. That has a lot to do with my process. So here were these black fishing ropes in Sicily. And I was approaching this from far away, and I thought, at first I didn't think they were ropes. I thought, are these like giant black snakes? You know, what could this be? And then I got closer to it, and there were so many things going on in here for me. Entanglement, ropes that just were tied, knots that are tied, confusion. And then on closer look, I would see that, you know, there were shapes and bodies that were formed in there. So I start thinking about all of this stuff, and then I say, okay, well then what else? What else? What else? And that like keeps pushing me, and then I feel like that, you know, that's like sort of a starting point for working. This is my ode to Hitchcock. This is a sliver of alleyway in Puglia. I just love like the shadows and the way light plays. And I feel like the more that you look at this and concentrate, there's so many other things that you're able to see in here. And also it's like the way the negative and the positive space play on one another, and then there's like sort of an organic form and then a very concrete form. That's something that I like to pursue in my work. This is the Munsters, the drawer of treasures. This is Ongo, I guess Susie can attest to. I have probably collected every single thing I've ever owned for 65 years. And so I have these drawers of just things, of stuff, like memory drawers, and I like to keep changing it or finding new things or juxtaposing interesting objects together. And it helps me, it helps me a lot to have a sort of a combination of like different color and forms and shape and humor, you know, and memory, and things from childhood. And who remembers the magic cubes? But I'm sure some people remember the magic cubes on the camera. This is my war rye. I started to make objects a long time ago, and I found that for me, the objects was like an extension of the paintings and the drawings and the printmaking and all of that. It was important to me to bring this into like a three-dimensional world, and also I felt like it was very interesting when you're able to walk around a piece and see it from all angles, because it gives you more information, and it makes you see things in a completely different way. And so I was thinking about war, not recent war, but many wars that we've had, and I thought, well, you know, I'm Jewish, and I think like one thing that, you know, as an icon for me is the rye bread. And then I decided I'm gonna wrap this in ropes and string and wire. And, you know, on the right-hand side, you could see like a little piece of bakery string. I don't know about you, but that's a very, that's okay. That's a very traditional Jewish string that they used at bakeries to close the boxes. And then the candles, of course, the candles for when somebody dies and you light the candle and the candle burns for as long as it takes for the candle to leave. This is my electric chair. I found this piece of wood and I love the knot in it, and the striations of the wood sort of seem to me to be like a kind of gate or screen, you know, that kept people out. So then I just started drawing on this wood, and near me was this black mesh. And I don't know why I did this, but I just stood the wood up and I started to fold the black mesh around the wood, and then it started to look like an electric chair to me. And I thought, you know, maybe there are other people that are going to think this looks like other things, and I think that's great. But there was just something about it that made me feel like it was a little sinister. But then the interesting thing is you have the mesh, which is loose and open and quiet, and then you have the steady wood and the drawing as the anchor. This is soft gun, another object that I made. You know, we're all thinking a lot about guns these days, and I love making stuffed objects. So there's gauze that I wrapped little trinket things in, and they're like old medical masks that my dad had, and I stained the cloth, I painted, I put wax, glue, and it was just sort of a representation of what happens in war. Just all the destruction, you know, could be like a body that's gone, or that's like just stuffed with gauze, yeah, I thought that was kind of interesting. This is I do a lot of tablescapes. I used to do food styling, and this is a tablescape I did at my house. I think it was for Thanksgiving. And once again, I mean, it's just, for me, it's all about like layering and color and more and more and more. And then that, like, you see more things once you put other things together. And I just like using a lot of different kinds of materials and things that I've collected over the years. You know, the glass, and then the Indian dancing thing that you put around your ankle, and shells and candlesticks. And so to me, it's like painting, really. This is the inside of my house. I pretty much live in an installation. And I'm very used to that. Like every time I live somewhere, I kind of make this big nest. But you know, not everybody lives this way. So, and so when people come in the house and they're like, wow, what, oh my God, it's like, what's the holiday or whatever. And I'm like, what do you mean? And so I do now realize that like this isn't necessarily the traditional styles in Architectural Digest or whatever. This is America's rib cage. This was sort of a take on my feeling of sort of the end of our civilization. And the concentration of shapes on the bottom and the entwinement and the lines and the masses and the color also informs like the ideas of end of civilization. I liked the way all of that was grouped and created this tension and energy, like on the bottom that was kind of like boiling up, and then it lets loose and there's this space that I actually left open, which is something I'm learning, but you know, it does take time. And then I felt like, well, you know, the space, even though it appears to be white and open and loose, there's a lot of information in that space. And then, you know, I was thinking, well, maybe this is sort of like Lady Liberty in a way, and the breasts and the big form. And on the left, we don't see it here, but there's a flag with stars, and that was sort of just, you know, well, like, what are we really doing in this world? Oh, here's another lady. Here's another America's rib cage. Another one? What's going on here? Am I not? Okay. Silencio was, this is just a little detail of Silencio. This is one of my first really big paintings. This was 6 feet by 5 feet. And this is just a detail, but I like creating things that have a lot of information in them, and that you have to kind of figure out, like a puzzle. I loved puzzles when I was a kid, and for me, I had kind of a pretty wild childhood, so I had to figure out how I could ground myself. And the things that I loved about puzzles is like you would throw all the pieces out on the table, there'd be all this chaos, but then from that I would make order. And so that made me feel like, okay, well, you know, there's some part of my life that's, you know, functioning. This is Suke to me. When I left the music business, I had to really decompress, and I traveled to Morocco for a few months, and I just traveled the whole country, and I took a lot of photographs, you know, with real film, and then I just collected a lot of stuff on the street, and I'd go to the souk, and I would see, you know, like kids' homework, and just a lot of like really interesting pieces of stuff. So this combines a number of my photographs taken, plus some writing and also some drawing that then I copied, Xerox, whatever, and then put it into this composition. What the hell's going on here? Okay. This is Mermaid's Grange. This is my studio. And thank God I have a studio, because if I didn't, I'd probably be in a mental institution. But yeah, it's okay. So this is the outside of Mermaid's Grange. Oh, no, that's supposed to be there. This is the inside of Mermaid's Grange. This is on like a really crazy day. But the wonderful thing about this is you see in the back, you see the painting that is in the first room. And so you see that there's no way that I could really see that painting in the studio, because everything is going on. Talk about making order out of chaos. And so now one of the really great things about being in this show is that I actually could see my work with a lot of space around it. And that has really helped me enormously, and I end up seeing things in the work that I have never seen before. This is a large painting that didn't get into the show, which is fine. And it was around the time of COVID, and like everyone was like, did you get your booster? You know, it's like we were all so crazy about everything. And then I just thought, like, okay, I'm going to take a different take on this. And it's like, well, don't talk dirty to me. You know, yeah, what do you mean getting my booster? Don't get so personal. So this is like, this painting is kind of a really big breakthrough for me, because it incorporates so much about me, about my lines and my painting and my storytelling and the writing, you know, taking lines from poetry that I write and photographs, and then, you know, making papers and then destroying them. And I think that this is a very nice representation of like all of that, and I think it works because there is sort of a grid system here, kind of a flowing grid system, but I see that was the way for me to organize the space. This is, I Put a Spell on You. This is just a teeny little piece of this. This is like a scroll painting. It's 12 feet by 4 feet. And I really love it because when you see the whole thing, it tells a story. It's like you're just going on an adventure, and it's telling you a story. And it sort of reminded me of like when I was a kid and I'd go to the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and in the Egyptian section, they'd have like the big scrolls over the temple, but every single fragment told a story. And that was sort of the impetus for doing something like this. This is Nomadic Nature. This piece, I would have to say, was inspired by travels in Morocco. We don't see the bottom of this, but there's a lot of like larger shapes, sort of almost in kind of like a cartoon manner, and there's expanse. And then you start moving through, and you have this concentration of lines and marks in the center, which for me is like when you're in the desert and you're traveling through, and all of a sudden you see like this village, like out of nowhere. And that's the feeling I get when I see this painting. And then I like the fact that you travel through that, and then everything opens up. So it's like it leaves space for, okay, what's next? I started drawing on plastic, big plastic sheets. I was in a residency in Italy, and they had really good plastic in the hardware stores. So I started drawing on this, and I actually used this in a performance that I did in Italy. I was the Madonna of the Pasta, and I was sleeping in a corner of this studio I had that was in a castle, and I used this as a blanket over me, and then I would wake up and people would come over and talk to me. This also is a fragment of What Now? Again, I find some of this work like very cinematic. I think I'm a big film person, love film, been seeing film since I was a kid, and I feel like sometimes I really think in that way, in a very cinematic way, like being outside, taking, like when I lived in New York, you know, there's just so much stimulus, taking a walk and just sort of taking in all these like little still fragments, and then thinking about them, and then at one point incorporating them into the work. Oh, this is my COVID baking, young rhubarb tart. Oh, it's young rhubarb because it's green. I used to bake seriously when I was younger, and then COVID came. And in the kitchen, I saw this like beautiful white KitchenAid mixer in the corner that I wasn't using, and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna bake. And the great thing about it was like, it was so interesting that you just throw stuff in a bowl, all these different elements, and you put it in a pan, or you put it in a pie thing or whatever, you put it in the oven, and it turns into, it was like so satisfying during COVID that, oh my God, I actually accomplished something. And then it was nice, like with masks on, to give some of it away. Not all of it, but some of it. Oh, this is another view of in my living room. Fellini was a very big influence on me growing up, and sometimes I feel like I was really born in the wrong time. I would have loved to have been in Rome in the 50s in a Fellini film. And I just like the theatrics of this, and the circus quality, and just the abandon, and as every picture tells a story, there are like so many stories in here. And it's very inspiring for me to sit in that room and just look at it and see things in different ways. This is Through the Looking Glass. This was also done partly on plastic, ink, gouache, marker, acrylic, gel medium, all these different things. And I just, what can I say about this? I love the hits of red. And I love that in a way this sort of looks like some sort of mechanical machine. And then over on the left, it kind of looks like a vertebrae. I grew up in a medical family, and I have a science background, and so I see that lots of times in my work. Body parts will be shown, interior workings, because when I was a kid and my dad would take me to the hospital while he did rounds, there was this wonderful woman in the admitting room, and I loved her, and she would give me JAMA magazines, which is the Journal of American Medical Association, and I would just draw all over them, and I would outline the intestines, and I just love that so much. So I can see that that's followed me. This is Can I Level With You? This also was a breakthrough in that black played a very big role in this, and the line quality. For me, every line tells a different kind of story, and a different mood, a different feeling. This piece to me is kind of very architectural. I like the way it builds up, and then there's space to the right, space to the left, and then you have this concentration of this creature or whatever it is on the left-hand corner, and then it just goes into this abstraction, this breakdown of sort of everything that was clearly in the painting. This is me. This is Julia and the Lilacs, and it's an ode to Gabriel Garcia Marquez because of the famous parrot in the book. My friend lived with me a couple of years ago for 4 months, and I have these beautiful lilacs on my property, and I said, okay, let's just do these photo shoots. So we brought stuff out into the yard. I got all dressed up, which is also a very big part of me. I'm very low-key today, but very big part of me, the theatrical, the performance part, the layering, the color, the revealing and the enclosing. So we got all the lilacs, and this is one of the shots that we took. This is in Mexico City. I like repetition, and I like that when there's repetition, there's movement and flow, and also there repetition sort of, it kind of invites, it invites like more thinking. I can't really explain what I'm trying to say, but like this stack of the cactus petals, that could be so many different things, you know? And the more you look at it, the more like various images come to light. And I also I love that they're all in the forefront, and then there's all this other like very, very concrete signage and all of that in the background. I like the juxtaposition of the organic and natural with the man-made. This is untitled. They're about, so during COVID and the year after COVID, I don't even know what year we're in with COVID or not, because now we're having a new influx with COVID. But I started doing these small drawings. I now have 2,000 of them. They're all untitled now, but they will get titles in the future. And I found like it was so meditative for me during COVID, and I was addicted to just like my markers and doing things in a small size and playing with space and movement and just having fun. It was like a really sort of way to just bring peace in my life, if that looks peaceful. This is Cocoon. I think I was looking at a photograph that I had taken in Mexico during the time that the butterflies come to this particular place, which is, if you have not been, it's really incredible. It's just incredible. And I just love the way, like the top to me almost looks like the Tower of Babel or some other, like the Guggenheim Museum or, you know, or a birthday cake or a wedding cake, whatever. And then you have, like, you see that the butterfly emerging, and then there's all this other stuff like just going on that's basically like life. I mean, stuff goes on, and so why not document it? This must be the place. This is when I actually started putting objects onto my paintings, and objects that I've collected over the years, that I found, that I've had forever. And for me, this was kind of like doing a puzzle in a way. I mean, the objects became, yes, integrated into the painting, but it was also like clues. Like I love like that game when I was a kid, Clue, you know, like or Find the Hidden or whatever, or the Highlights magazine, you know, whatever. So that was sort of like the inspiration for this. And then I like the idea of the forms, the different real objects taking on like another kind of character. This is press 1 for more options. This is much larger. This is 6 feet by 6 feet. And I don't know, this, for me, I look at this and it has sort of like it's like a battle scene or like some sort of militaristic shape in the middle with all of this other language going on. This is With Your Help. A very good friend of mine who was in his 80s passed away this year, and he was an antique textile expert and seller and just a really wonderful person. And he gave me this huge white quilt, and I said to myself, okay, I made a series of 5 of these, and I wanted to do it for Homer. And so I just started cutting. I made them all the same size, 3 by 3, and I just started cutting them up, and you know, just kind of going. Like, I don't really have an idea in my head when I start a piece. It's like I just start. I'm very direct, very intuitive. I like the speed of going, and I like the idea of the automatic writing, and I like the idea of, like, you know, painting something and then like a line like, oh no, too much. Or with you, don't even know what this says. With you something, help. And then I've used, like, I collect old magazines, so I sort of pulled out things that sort of went with the whole thing. And then there's perfect. There's nothing perfect. There's no perfection. This is Imagine, also a very large painting. This was done on an old tablecloth that we had from childhood. And I don't know, I started like cutting out stencils, so I decided I'm making this question mark, and I wanted the question mark to be right in the center with all of these things kind of floating around the question mark, because there's so much unknown now. There's been so much unknown, the last decade. And then there were some political symbols in here, and it tells a lot of stories, and everybody will see something different, which is something that I love when people talk to me about my work. This is Julia's Caravaggio. This is a performance I did. I have an adopted family on an island in Sicily, so, the great thing is Italians are so weird. I mean, they're just so, they're like, could be so religious and so righteous and all this, but then they could be like crazy and screaming at each other, and then in 1 second they're hugging and they're kissing, and I realized that, well, that's where opera came from. So I did this for my family, and it's like they were like so happy, and the kids, I mean, they couldn't get over it. So then I was dressing the kids up, and we just had a lot of fun. Oh, this is Madonna the Pasta. This was the installation in the castle. That's the painted blanket. I had all these like little things around me. I'm making some kind of rope out of pasta, and have Calvino, who I adore, The Invisible Cities, which is such a great book, and just stuff that I've collected and things like that. And so I would have these signs in Italian, like the Madonna's sleeping now, don't disturb her, or what do you want, or, ask me anything. You don't see those signs in here, but it was a lot of fun. This is also Mexico City. I love the colors in this. I'm very much into color. And I just love the whitewashed brick wall, with the Madonna. There's always the Madonna. And then I love like all of the toppled watermelons that almost have a feeling of breasts. And then I like the fact that, okay, that's watermelon, but this is another way of watermelon. This is when you cut it open, and it shapes, and it's different. It's like, would you think that flesh was in the watermelon? You probably would, because you know about watermelon, but what if you didn't? I love to cook. This is, I love to chop. It's really calming for me. It's meditative. And so I just started taking pictures of all this chopped stuff, because I felt like it was like my drawing in a way. I was like kind of drawing in food. And this rock I brought back from Italy, because it's the greatest garlic smashing rock. And it fits so nicely in your hand. It's in the kitchen, and I think I want to be buried with it. But I don't want to be buried, actually. I want to be cremated, so I have to figure that out. This is my mom as a tea bag. We drank a lot of tea in our family. I have a lot of British relatives. I took the little red rose thing that, from the tag of the tea. And the pink is a piece of my baby blanket. And then the middle smushed tea bag with the baker's string with the Jewish star. I don't know. I just felt like that was kind of an anchor, a weight into the piece. And then it was like one day she returned as a tea bag, because sometimes, like, my mom's been gone about 28 years, and I just think of her as returning as different things, like the The dragonflies have come out into my yard now, and we buried her with a dragonfly pin. So when the dragonflies come, it's like my mom, as a dragonfly. This was a drawing I did when I was 10, and it's kind of fascinating to me because I'm basically still doing the same thing. It's like I haven't really grown up that much. And I found this in a memory box, and I'm like, oh my God, we got to put this in the presentation. This is in the show. It's the birthing box. I really love working in boxes. When I was a kid, I loved making dioramas and shoe boxes. I loved going to the Museum of Natural History and just looking at all of the big dioramas. I love Joseph Cornell, and it just started like that gauze is stuffed with some things, and the glitter, and then all of the vines and kind of ropey thing. That's really, for me, drawing with nature. Then you have the solid piece in the back that kind of holds the whole thing together. And then when I was thinking about it, it was like, it's kind of like this thing is giving birth. I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. But for me it was, and that's why I called it the birthing box. This is a postcard I did in 1981 with my dear friend who passed away 14 years ago. I had a Mona alias, and people would send me Mona things for years. And so I lived in Siena for a year when I was in college, and so that's a travel poster of Siena behind me, and that's like classic Mona. And then because it was the 80s, that was punk Mona. And this postcard went a lot of places, and it was just so nice to do it, and I actually love the fact that, I still have some and I still think about it. This is another Julia garden. So this is my deck garden in the summer. This is like kind of the way I paint or draw, just like all these different forms and weights and thin and, heavy and light and whatever. And so then I thought, okay, I'm going to dress up and I'm going to see if I can capture myself in the garden, which I did. And it makes me think more about, like, there's a lot of performance I want to do, like, in the next few years, and I just feel like that's just one with one. This is me at 3, and so it starts really early. I mean, I don't really have it changed, So I think wigs I think were fashionable then. My mom was single, and she was like dating all these horrible people, and so I would when she left, I would put her wigs on and dress up, and that's I think how it started. This is another view of the studio. This is another photo shoot I did with my friend. This is a huge tarp, 14 feet by 14 feet, that I drew on. Has all these different words and symbols. It's huge. And at one point, Susie and I were thinking, okay, maybe we'll suspend it from the ceiling, but then we decided not to. And then, so I'm wearing a dress that I drew on, which is a little bit faint, you can't see that, but then like another layer of the plastic around me. And I just felt like my hair is lines. And, so I am lines. And, yeah. This is Mermaid's Grange. This is the sign that I put out, 15 years ago when I bought my house. It's little. This is when it was really new. Now it's fading a little bit, but this piece is in the show, Layers of Inquiry, and I loved, I had all this gauze, and I don't know what I was thinking about, but I started molding it with gel and heavy paste and all this, and then it just started, I started seeing all these skeletons and forms, and You know, there are some mark making here that is reminiscent of the inside of a body, and then this thing that is like an exclamation point, but not really, and then photographs I've taken, prints I've made, and just leaving. I've seen a lot more things in this now that it's on a wall with space around it, but it's just the whole negative space, positive space and negative space I feel is like in real conversation with each other. This is Nabokov and the Butterflies at Large, which is in the first room. This is like a diary, like a visual diary for me. A visual puzzle, tells many different things. The reason I named it Nabokov and the Butterflies at Large is because he was very into butterflies. He was a butterfly collector, and he was the one, I mean, he's gone, but he was the one that actually turned me on told me that during the Holocaust, the kids in their rooms on the dirt walls, I don't know how they got chalk or whatever, but they would draw butterflies, like in flight, like going up to the light, because there was like one little source of light that would come into the room. And I just felt that was really moving. And this is a grid. This is like a whole bunch of stuff. Some of you saw, some you didn't. There's some objects there. The shell phone is in the show. Someone actually thought that that was a real thing. But there's some of the drawings, the 2,000 drawings. There's some big collages, just a mixture. Oh, I can't do it, but in the center on the right, you see a leg, and you see that's a clothing line I have at home. And I did a big installation on the line a bunch of years ago with banners and this is in conversation. I just wanted to, sometimes I gotta give myself some boundaries, which I don't usually do, but I just said, you know what, I just want red and black, let's see what happens, and then this happened. Oh. That's it.
Well, can you hear me? Yes. That was awesome. And I actually did not know what she was going to say. So I feel like you've said everything I need to say.
No, but
which is great. So I'm not going to say too much. But I do want to just say that one thing that was very important for me as the curator working with Julia was she's everything about art. I mean, she is as Abe Storr said, you know, you're the gestalt of your work. Like everything is everything. And I think that's really important, but I think one of the things I wanted to make sure was that you could also see the work separately from the identity of Julia. Because I learned so much over the last 15 years working with you, but especially through this, looking and re-looking, and the work is really strong, and there's a lot of meaning, there's a lot of humor, you have such a wealth of knowledge and information. I mean, Julia goes to the library all the time just to read or to write or to look, and I think that was really an important thing for me is to make sure that you really could see each piece or a piece. I mean, they're all just moments. It's not a retrospective, it's just a decision, one way to show her work. There's many ways you could do this, but I think that was something that was very important to me, and I wanted to mention that. And then, sorry, I have the wrong glasses on, so I can't really read my notes. No, it's fine.
See this?
And then really, I guess everything else you had said, the other thing I also want to say is that I think art is really about seeing, and that's the beauty of different art. I mean, what you just went through, like, I didn't see half the things you saw. I saw very different things.
Well, we also went fast, too.
No, I've seen all that work already.
I know, yeah.
But that's what's so beautiful, is that you're giving me your interpretation, and I'm also able to see my own. And that's very generous of you. But also, I think that's really an important thing, is because seeing, like, it leads to everything. I mean, it leads to peace in the world if we're all able to see others. So I think that you are such a good seer, and I think that's really an important part, is that all your life is like, I mean, a collection. It's just constantly collections. You talked about the object wall.
No, but you could say a few things.
No, I don't need to. I really don't. I think I want to just do a little exercise with you, and then I think we should just open it up to questions.
All right.
So one of the things right before we were talking about the talk, I said to Julia, can you send me your influences? I said, send me 10. So she did 3 different times. So I said, I only want 10. So these are not all her influences. These are just 10 of many.
It was really hard.
I know it was. But so I'm going to say one of her influences, and I want you, which you did some already, but just say 1 or 2 words about why. And then after you do, I'm going to tell you why I think that you'd be influenced. Great. Okay? Very quickly. So where do I do this? Here? Okay. So Kandinsky.
Spiritual, how many words do I have? Otherworldly, mechanical, science.
Great. And I said rhythm, that he was a leader, and the relationship with music.
Oh yeah, I forgot that one.
Oh, no, that's, okay. I'll move it around. Jackson Pollock.
Yeah. Oh God, I mean, when I lived in Italy, when I went to school, you know, I was in Venice part of the time, and then I was able to be in the Peggy Guggenheim internship program, and so she collected like some of the, this is more than one word, okay. Turmoil, energy, electricity, you know.
Great. I said action all over a painting.
Action. Cornell.
Joseph Cornell.
Oh God, I've loved him forever. I think when I found out that his first opening at the Guggenheim, he just invited kids, and he served cherry soda and brownies. And I thought that was like the coolest thing in the world. Sorry, not going to be any brownies tonight, but I mean, it's just you could write 15,000 stories about all of those objects. I love it. But that wasn't one word.
That's okay. We're getting there.
Okay,
we're working
good.
on it. That's what Julia and I have been doing all along. But side note about that, I also do want to say is that there is a conversation that is, I think, interesting about the idea of a curator being an editor of an artist. But also, that's a dangerous thing as well, because there's no way I'm not doing it from who I am or whoever's the curator. And you're the one with all the curating experience, not me, in your past. Okay. But I think that you don't want to edit down who you are. You just want to edit what people can take in, because we all have such a hard time seeing, and it's so hard, you know, and that's yes. the editing.
Well, you did a fantastic job.
So the thing about Cornell that I wanted to say was that in addition to creating boxes and flat collages and making short art films, Cornell also kept a filing system of over 160 visual documentaries on themes that interested him. And Julie, I mean, she saves everything, so I thought that was... Fellini.
It's everything. It's theatrics. It's being a clown. It's being open to possibility. It's juxtaposing like absurd images together, which comments on something else. It's musicality. It's those great pointy shoes.
So, and I said fantasy, desire, and memory. Alfred Hitchcock.
This is another one of my loves. I kind of grew up with Hitchcock films. My mom was very into films, and just elements of surprise, suspense, a visual language that is just incredible.
I said suspense and storytelling. Ava Hess.
Someone that died way too soon. I mean, she really broke a lot of walls, so to speak, for women artists. But bravery, fierceness, just play.
I said materials and line. Joan Mitchell.
Yeah, Joan Mitchell, she had a huge show at the Whitney a number of years ago. I saw it a couple of different places, but I went back to this show. I cannot tell you how many times. And I sat, and fortunately there was one time that it was kind of empty. And I sat on one of those benches and I looked, and I gotta say, like tears just started coming down my face. Not from this one so much, but there were like panels that she put together that were just so evocative of everything. She, to me, I mean, as a female painter, she was fantastic. She didn't get the recognition that she deserved. She is now. But, you know, you had all of the Abex guys, the whole macho thing. But she was smart. She went to France, and she, you know, had a lot of notoriety there, and she just lived her life on her own terms.
I said gesture and mark making. Cy Twombly.
Well, aside from the fact that Cy Twombly also has a love affair with Italy, and has like one of the most beautiful houses on water, and they've now made it into a museum, it's the mark making. I mean, it's the freedom of mark making, and like what happens when you just have abandoned. And a lot of the times you have no idea what you're putting on the paper. There are a couple of things in there that I would say, you know, I was just going, and now that there's white space and room around the pieces, I'm like, I didn't see that before. Or there's just all of this imagery that's emerging, and that's what I love about him.
I also said cultural memory, because I think a lot of your work, you're always taking in the ephemera of your times, collecting, and memory seems very, I mean, a lot of your work I also find very melancholy.
Yeah, I'm kind of melancholy.
Yeah. I can't, sorry, Carolee, go ahead.
Carolee Schneemann. I really wanted to add, put her in this 10 because, I mean, I had like 100, and that was like just the first 10 minutes. But she did everything. She was one of the first women artists to work with the body. She was so courageous. She made films, she made objects, she painted, she did performance, she did everything. And what's so interesting about this is you're gonna say, oh, that looks like a Rauschenberg piece that I saw, blah, blah, blah. But you know what? She did that first. And she is actually, people are starting to recognize her now. But I would say, like, look into her work because it's really fascinating.
I have a quote from her, everything that I have developed has to do with extending visual principles off the canvas. So, see, I think it's also interesting that we're kind of saying the same thing, but very differently.
Exactly.
Well,
we are the same person now.
Yeah. Klaus Oldenburg.
Oh.
This is your last one.
Okay, so years and years ago, I was kind of too young, but in the 60s, and even into the 70s. Well, first of all, he's a master draftsman. I mean, he can draw anything, and it's just like magnificent. I mean, he could all of that stuff was fabricated into huge sculptures like lipstick, but if you see the original lipstick drawing, it's gorgeous. So with just several lines, like whatever. So anyway, he did these happenings in New York, in the Lower East Side and in the Village, where he'd do a storefront. He'd just make all the objects. That he'd have people come and do performance in the window. His wife helped him make a lot of the objects and costumes for the performances. And I just think that he, like myself, he loved to play, and that's really what it's about.
If you can let yourself, right. I said humor, absurd, ephemera out of context. Out of context. I think that's it. Okay. So questions?
That was fabulous. Thank you both so much. We have time for one question. So.
Are we going to do the books at all? Do you want to say about
Oh
the
yeah,
books?
yes. We also have, yes, we have incredible books for sale for the exhibition. Beautiful. It's not a catalog, it's an experience.
Yes.
It's amazing. So Julia is here to sign those, and you can also ask questions when you get your book signed. Yeah, so one mic'd question.
I just want to say, can I say something really quickly?
Yeah.
Okay, about the book. So this curator artist thing is fascinating. The two of us learned so much about each other, about whatever, about the way we work. And the thing is that when I said to Susie, it's your vision, you're the curator, you see the stuff, take it and do what you want with it. But then the book was and Susie knows how to rein me in and really frame things so that it's digestible for people. But then it was the book was,
Yeah, the book is amazing. Go check it out. Does anyone have a question? Okay.
it's going to be hard.
Well, Susie said that Julia spoke about the object wall, but she actually only spoke about a few of the objects. So I was curious about the composition of the object wall, and particularly if Susie, if you played a part in curating that, if you could say a word about your choices and arrangement of that wall.
Well, I thought it was important to do the object wall because just to show her line continuing. I think in some ways it was somewhat of a portrait of Julia for me. One of the things, though, that I took into account was that her writing was I found very funny and very, had a lot of layers to it. So I wanted to make sure that some of her ideas, politically or social commentary, that maybe you wouldn't see in other things could get through. So sometimes I made that decision clearly on just wanting to make sure that you knew that Julia's thinking about certain things that you might not know. So that was it. But also there's definitely like a, it's starting like almost a triangle feeling of Julia in the center. She had a male jacket that was her dad's that was very, part of the thing also is that sometimes I had to say no to something just because it took up too much. Like the booster thing, I was like, it cannot be a political show about COVID. Like, even though it was an important piece for her, I didn't think it was important for the whole of the show. So that was a hard decision, but anyway.
But it was a hard decision, and like we had a little thing going on, but then it was like, you know what, you're right. You were right.
Well, there's no right. There is no right. There's just
yeah.
committing to your idea, to your what you're doing, and that's different. But okay, thank you.
Thank you so much.
You both.
Thanks, Julia.